Hi, Dr. Aisha.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. We are just in this room. I didn't start it yet. So, are you ready? You need anything?
Just now, where do you see me? Where is
Yes, I
my
can see you. Are you ready
uh, ready for what?
to listen to your opening?
I'm in the toilet. I want to just to prepare to get prepared for tell me for prayer. Just
Ah,
now, I finished my meeting. How can I see myself? Where can I see myself?
you cannot see
Because
yourself.
I'm entering
Ah,
from mobile.
no, because I'm using you can see the background, right?
Yes, I can see the background.
It's okay, you will not see yourself because I'm sharing the background.
Ah, so okay, good. When maybe give it 15 minutes, huh?
Yep, I will just turn it on 2:30 so people know that it's actually running now. They can see the background. Then I will play everything from 2:45.
Okay, but first from 2:30 to 2:45, what you will play?
Just
Nothing.
this. Just this.
Okay,
Welcome.
okay. Inshallah, everything will go well.
Inshallah.
Yalla, I will mute. I will go to toilet. You can
Okay,
enter all
Doctora.
of them.
Okay.
Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you,
What
Doctora.
happened with this guy?
Pasisi,
Hey, what
Dr.
he
Leila
want?
and I had a fight with him. Not really
Why?
fight. No, because Doctora, the problem is they slept like Karin for how many weeks and months. Then they will send the full registration of 300 only in the evening, maybe 10, 11. Then
Mm.
I already give it to the platform team this morning. They are already configuring all these emails, but of course it takes time. Then
Mm.
they are having new names that are not yet registered, and I already closed the registration of Zoom. Then they said,
Mm.
why like this? This is not good. I said, no, today is the conference. How can I get registration on the same day? You need to
Yes, yes.
communicate with my colleagues, Ellen or
Mm.
Shaima. Then they will register
Mm.
your people. I didn't say no, but you need to communicate with them. Then he said, Muhammad,
Mm.
no, I will speak with Dr. Aisha. This is not good.
Mm.
So
Mm.
I called Dr. Leila. I said what
Mm.
happened, and she called Muhammad, and
Mm.
they had a little discussion
Mm.
because they
Okay.
Muhammad were saying this is not good. This is the third time.
خلاص, don't they should not participate with us.
Yes.
Mm. Because we have procedure, we have guidelines. If they miss the procedure and guidelines, we cannot help them.
So
Yalla, open for the people.
okay, Doctora. I will
Ignore
mute
him. He
now.
is always like this. He can go for with catalyst. It's okay.
Yeah, Dr. Leila said, bear in your mind after the conference, I will speak to the three of you because this is not right. You are speaking behind our back.
She told him.
Yeah, Dr. Leila is trying.
Yeah, okay.
Hello, Doctora. Okay, Doctora, bye-bye. No, Dr. Aisha was
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Excellencies, distinguished delegates and colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It's with great pleasure that I welcome you to the International Growth and Development Virtual Conference with the theme Healthy Aging from Pediatric to Geriatric. The virtual IGD Conference 2021 is conducted under the patronage of His Excellency Sheikh Nahyan Mubarak Al Nahyan, Cabinet Member, Minister of Tolerance and Coexistence. I would like to start by wishing you and your families my personal best for your health and safety in these difficult times. I would also like to warmly welcome the Excellencies, the audience, as well as our scientific speakers and United Nations representatives who are joining us from different parts of the world and from different time zones. This is the first time that we hold the IGD conference on digital platforms in line with the social distancing norms of the COVID-19 pandemic. However, I'm very pleased that this new innovative virtual forum has been very well received, as it has given us the opportunity to be even more inclusive to scale this event to a wider audience without compromising the health and safety of our guests. To begin with, please join me in welcoming His Excellency Sheikh Nahyan Mubarak Al Nahyan, Cabinet Member, Minister of Tolerance and Coexistence.
It gives me a great pleasure to welcome you to the Third International Growth and Development Conference. These virtual conferences are rapidly becoming the new normal. I'm grateful that technology makes it possible to continue to meet safely and to share ideas during these difficult times. We must thank my dear daughter, Dr. Aisha Al-Zahri, and her colleagues for bringing together such a remarkable group of medical and health professionals to share their knowledge with participants. I thank all of you and appreciate your dedication to unlocking the mysteries of healthy aging. The importance of medical research, often overlooked by the general public, has become obvious in the face of the coronavirus, which has had a greater impact on those who are older. While COVID-19 is quite appropriately the current healthcare focus worldwide, the issue of healthy aging continues to be important. It is abundantly clear that a good quality of life is dependent on good health. It is also evident that good health is not only a matter of disease prevention and medical care, but also affected by environmental, behavioral, and social conditions. Extending life and increasing the quality of that life are noble objectives. We in the United Arab Emirates are committed to the promotion of healthy living as well as advanced medical practice under the wise leadership of the President, His Highness Sheikh Khalif bin Zayed Al Nahyan. Our country enjoys the benefits of a world-class healthcare system with the enlightened guidance and support of His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, Vice President, Prime Minister, and ruler of Dubai, and that of His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, and the Deputy Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces. Our excellent system of healthcare is responsive to the needs of the individuals as well as to those of the community. We appreciate the skill, the commitment, and the compassion of all healthcare professionals in our country, especially in these difficult times. We are proud that our healthcare system is characterized by teamwork among skilled professionals, supported by relevant medical research, with high levels of quality assurance and accountability, state-of-the-art hospitals and clinics, and the accelerated use of information technology. Our country has a comprehensive, multifaceted approach to healthcare. It encompasses all factors that promote public health, healthier individual life, illness prevention, and health education and awareness. The IGD conference supports all these goals and objectives. It clearly indicates that the medical profession is committed to helping us live well and age gracefully in a safe and healthy way. You understand that medical research has the power to advance knowledge and practice, that it leads to important cures as well as effective preventative practices, therapies, and vaccines. With so much excellent work being done, it is a challenge to stay current in this field. It is good to see all of you rising to this challenge through your participation in this conference. Your conference also demonstrates that international cooperation helps to accelerate progress in medicine and public health. We in the UAE firmly believe in the importance of scientific cooperation across national boundaries. We are also committed to creating the best possible conditions for such cooperation to be successful. I wish you a most productive and successful conference. As I mentioned to you at your first conference, you give us all hope that we can, with the right exercise and the right diet and the right attitude, do a great deal ourselves to increase the quality and the length of our lives as we age. I'd like to thank you again and wish you a very successful conference.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for the inspiring speech. We have experts from across the field who will be presenting their research for the next 3 days on topics related to nutrition, metabolism, and body composition during the aging process. I hope this conference gives the opportunity for pediatricians, dietitians, policymakers, healthcare professionals, companies, and researchers to get together and share latest knowledge and innovations. Allow me now to extend my gratitude to sponsors for their tremendous support and for making this conference successful. Emirates Nutrition Association, the Nutrition Society United Kingdom, Nestle, Tokyo University of Agriculture and Technology, Abbott Laboratories, and Sika. So once again, thank you all for joining us, and I wish you all a fruitful and positive deliberations. We will start our program with plenary session about omega-3 fatty acid for optimal health across the life course, given by Professor Philip Calder, who is a professor of nutritional immunology, Faculty of Medicine, University of Southampton, United Kingdom. He is an internationally recognized researcher on the metabolism and functionality of fatty acid, with an emphasis on the role of omega-3 fatty acids and on the influence of diet and nutrient on the immune and inflammatory responses. His research addresses both the life course and translational consideration and includes research in cell and animal models and in healthy humans and patients.
Great. Thanks so much. Okay, I'm just trying to share my screen, but that is disabled by the host. Are you able to hear me?
Can you please try again, Professor?
Okay, thank you. Great, thank you so much. Sometimes there are technical hitches. Thanks very much, everybody, and thanks for inviting me to give a plenary lecture at your really important meeting. Just putting up my pointer now. Great. So I'm going to talk about omega-3s for optimum health across the life course. So what are omega-3 fatty acids? They're a family of long-chain, highly unsaturated fatty acids. So they have 3 or more double bonds. And actually, I'm going to be talking about fatty acids with even more double bonds, 5 or 6. The term omega-3 relates to the position of one of the double bonds in the structure. So omega-3 is actually a structural descriptor. There are a number of members of the omega-3 fatty acid family. In other words, there are several omega-3 fatty acids, and I list them here. Today, I'm going to be talking about eicosapentaenoic acid, EPA, and docosahexaenoic acid, DHA, because they seem to be the most bioactive of the omega-3 fatty acids. The different members of the family have different dietary sources, but they're metabolically related to one another. So as I mentioned, I'm going to be talking about EPA and DHA. You see these are very long chain. EPA has 20 carbons, DHA has 22 carbons, and they're highly unsaturated with 5 or 6 double bonds in the structure. So they're long chain, highly unsaturated. So they have rather unique structural features, and this gives them special properties that relate to cell and tissue function and to human health. It turns out that although EPA and DHA are really important to physiology, we don't seem to be able to synthesize them very well ourselves. So they may be essential or conditionally essential, but certainly the consensus is we're unable to synthesize them very well, particularly DHA. And what this means is preformed dietary sources are important. The main dietary source of EPA and DHA is seafood, especially what we call oily or fatty fish. So that's fish like salmon, tuna, sardines, mackerel, herring, and so on. EPA and DHA can be isolated from the body of different types of fish and can be encapsulated to form supplements. Sometimes people call these fish oil supplements. So these supplements are also a source of EPA and DHA. If we look at the EPA and DHA content of different types of fish, and here I also include another omega-3 fatty acid, DPA, docosapentaenoic acid. So in the metabolism, it goes EPA to DPA and DPA to DHA. So these are the contents of these different fatty acids in different types of fish. So you see there are some fish, the ones with asterisks, that contain rather a lot of these fatty acids. So you could get somewhere between 1.5 and 3 grams of omega-3s simply from one meal of these fish. And then you have some other types of fish. These are white fish, where the content of omega-3s is much lower, perhaps 100, 200, 300 milligrams, so 0.1 to 0.3 grams. Nevertheless, these white fish are a source of EPA and DHA. So we can consume EPA and DHA from fish, from other seafood, or from supplements. And here I show you in outline what happens in whole body terms when we do that. So mainly EPA and DHA are in the form of triglycerides. So they are digested in the small intestine. The products of the digestion are absorbed. Triglycerides are reassembled and released out into the bloodstream as components of lipoproteins. So the EPA and DHA are carried in the bloodstream in triglycerides and also in cholesterol esters and in the phospholipids of lipoproteins. These lipoproteins are delivering the EPA and DHA to different body locations. So, for example, they will be delivering EPA and DHA to cells and tissues where those fatty acids are important components of cell membranes. They might be delivering EPA and DHA to adipose tissue where they can be stored. And they may be delivering EPA and DHA to the liver, which is a site of fatty acid metabolism, for example, oxidation. So we can imagine we have transport, storage, metabolic, and functional pools of EPA and DHA. What this means is probably all cells and tissues in the body contain EPA and DHA, but they contain them in different amounts. So this is the contribution of EPA to total fatty acids present in different locations. So these are different lipids in the bloodstream, red blood cells, platelets, white blood cells, the cerebral cortex in the brain, the retina in the eye, heart muscle, skeletal muscle, liver, the gut wall, fat tissue, and sperm. And we see highly variable amounts of EPA from perhaps 0.1% of fatty acids in the brain and eye up to maybe 1.5% of fatty acids in red blood cells. So we have different amounts of EPA in different locations in the body. This is the same figure for DHA. So the first thing you'll note is that the scale is different. The scale went up to 1.6 for EPA, For DHA, the scale goes up to 14. So in general, we maybe have about 10 times more DHA in different locations than we have EPA. But again, this is highly variable. But it's important to note that the cerebral cortex contains a high amount of DHA, the retina contains a high amount of DHA, the liver contains quite a lot, and sperm contains a high amount. So maybe DHA is really important to brain function, to visual function, to liver function, and sperm function. And indeed, this seems to be the case. Now, if you put these two figures together, EPA in blue, DHA in brown, you'll see that in all locations, there's much more DHA than there is EPA. And maybe this means DHA is really functionally very important, and maybe EPA is of less importance, although that can be debated. But it's particularly clear in the brain and the eye that there's a lot of DHA and very little EPA. So this presence of EPA and DHA in cells, so they're mainly in the cell membrane, except in adipose tissue, where of course they're stored as triglyceride, but in cells and tissues, they're mainly in the membrane. And this relates to their effect on human health. They control how cells and tissues work. So EPA and DHA are present in the membrane. They influence how membrane proteins function. They influence how the membrane itself is structured. These things create signals within cells, so cell signaling mechanisms, which impact on gene expression, protein production, and the way that cells and tissues respond to stimuli. So what this means is EPA and DHA in cell membranes can control molecular events in cells and control our cellular responses. And this can impact, of course, on cell physiology and ultimately on human health. Now, what happens if people consume more EPA and DHA? So we know that if people consume more EPA and DHA, for example, by eating more fish, by taking omega-3 supplements, they end up with more EPA and DHA in their blood cells, so red cells, white cells, platelets, and in their tissues, heart, liver, muscle, and so on. The more EPA and DHA that people consume, the more that accumulates. This takes time. So you can measure changes after a few days, but the maximal accumulation typically takes weeks or even months. So there's a time course to this incorporation. Now, if people then stop taking in so much EPA and DHA, they disappear over time. So they get in pretty easily, but they come out again pretty easily. DHA comes out, so it disappears more slowly than EPA. So maybe this is suggesting that DHA is functionally more important and that cells have a mechanism to hold on, to retain DHA when its intake goes down. A second note at the bottom here is that although DHA is really important in the brain and also in the eye, that once we get beyond early childhood, it doesn't seem that DHA enters those sites very easily. So it's very difficult to increase the amount of DHA in the brain once we get beyond early childhood. This doesn't mean that DHA can't influence brain function in older children, in adolescents, and in adults, but this may not necessarily involve DHA getting into the brain. So this is just to show you the relationship with time and dose of intake and the amount of EPA and DHA that appears in a particular pool. And this is actually phospholipids in the blood with EPA in the top graph and DHA in the bottom graph. So this is a trial we did in healthy volunteers where they took supplements daily for a year. And we took blood samples at different times over the year, and we measured the amounts of EPA and DHA, in this case, in phospholipids in the blood. Now, the placebo group is in orange, and you see that over a year, EPA and DHA don't change in the placebo group. And then we had 3 other groups who were consuming different doses of EPA and DHA. And you see the increase in both EPA and DHA in those 3 groups according to dose. The other thing you might note is that the enrichment in EPA happens very quickly. This is 30 days here. This is 14 days here. So it happens within 2 to 4 weeks, and then a new steady state is reached, whereas the enrichment in DHA is slower. It maybe takes 60 days. So DHA gets in slower than EPA, but it also comes out more slowly than EPA. This is the dose-response relationship from that study in 4 different blood lipids in white cells and in red cells. 0 is the placebo group, and then 1, 2, and 4 are the different doses of EPA and DHA. This is the data for EPA and DHA combined, but the same result is seen for EPA and DHA separately. And what this shows is a linear dose-response relationship between the amount of EPA and DHA that's consumed and the amount of EPA and DHA that appears in different blood pools. In other words, there's a dose-response relationship to incorporation. The more you consume, the more that gets in. So far, I've talked about blood, but this is just to show you this also happens in tissues. And this is for heart. So in this study, this is a really interesting study. Hearts that were going to be transplanted into other people were biopsied, and the EPA and DHA content in the heart muscle is shown in blue. Then those hearts were transplanted into recipients, and the recipients consumed EPA and DHA every day for 6 months. And then after 6 months, another biopsy was taken from the heart, and those data are shown in red. So you see over 6 months, the heart accumulates EPA and the heart accumulates DHA. And in humans, similar things have been shown in skeletal muscle, liver, the gut wall, fat tissue, and so on. So I'm really stressing this because the incorporation of EPA and DHA into cell membranes, in blood cells and in tissues is central to how those fatty acids affect the function of those cells and tissues, which is the core to how this impacts on human health. So the incorporation of these fatty acids influences the physical nature of the membrane, influences how proteins move and generate signals in membranes, and also influences the production of chemicals that take messages either into the cell to the nucleus or out of the cell to other cells. So having more of these fatty acids in the membranes alters signals. This changes responses, gene expression, cellular activation. This influences physiology, impacting on health, disease risk, disease severity, and clinical outcome. So through these mechanisms, EPA and DHA influence visual function, cognitive function, metabolism, inflammation, immune responses, oxidative stress, blood coagulation, function of many different organs, wound healing, and lots of other things. So a way to look at this simplistically is shown here. If we increase intake of EPA and DHA, we end up with more EPA and DHA in cell membranes and less of the omega-6 fatty acid arachidonic acid. That's also part of how they work. This improves cell and tissue phenotype, so the way cells and tissues behave, and this improves health or clinical outcome. So what actually do EPA and DHA do? So I've already alluded a little bit to some of these things. We know that DHA promotes brain growth and visual and neural function, particularly in early life. We know that EPA and DHA are important in membrane structure, in the control of blood pressure, clotting, blood triglycerides, how blood vessels work, the control of heart rhythms, inflammation, immunity, bone health, and metabolism. So they're really master controllers of many biological processes. And of course, it's been demonstrated that low intakes of EPA and DHA can be associated with poor levels of some of these things. In other words, with higher blood pressure, higher triglycerides, and what have you, more inflammation. And what this means is EPA and DHA actually can help with some of these things. They do have a blood pressure lowering effect. It's small, but it's seen. They have a very good blood triglyceride lowering effect. They can control blood vessel dysfunction, abnormal heart rhythms. They reduce risk of heart disease. At high dose, they can control inflammatory conditions and so on. So they have many, many properties relating to promotion of health and amelioration of disease. I just want to pull out a few examples to show you data from humans where omega-3s have been demonstrated to have quite interesting effects that relate to improved health. And the first one is around allergies and asthma in childhood, a big problem. So this is a study this is a human study where women who were allergic themselves were randomized into a control trial in pregnancy where they consumed omega-3s at high dose or placebo through the second half of pregnancy until about month 3 or 4 of lactation. And then the bar chart is outcomes relating to allergy in the children at age 1 year. So the mothers took omega-3s during pregnancy and lactation, and the outcome is measured in the children aged 1 year. Placebo group in blue, omega-3 group in yellow. So you see the children of mothers who consumed omega-3s in pregnancy and lactation have a much lower risk of food allergy, of allergic eczema, of being sensitized to be allergic to egg, and of being sensitized to be allergic to any one of the things that were tested. This is a similar study where the follow-up went right out to 5 years of age, and the outcome here was asthma. And of course, asthma is a result often of allergy in children. So this is asthma in children resulting probably from allergy in those children. So this is a large trial of women in pregnancy, again randomized to omega-3s or placebo for the second half of pregnancy, and then the children were followed. And you see the children of mothers who consumed omega-3 had a significantly lower risk of developing asthma than the children of mothers in the placebo group. So reduction in food allergy and in asthma in the offspring of mothers who consumed omega-3s in pregnancy. What about older children, school children? So this is a trial we were involved in with researchers in Thailand, where school children consumed a milk that was fortified with a DHA-rich fish oil. So they took 1.2 grams of EPA plus DHA on 5 days a week for 6 months. And we looked at illness, which was mainly respiratory illness in these children. And we identified that children in the fish oil group were less likely to become ill. And if they became ill, they had a shorter duration of illness. So giving omega-3s to school children seems to reduce the likelihood of respiratory illness, or if they get respiratory illness, of the duration or severity. Let's turn now to inflammation. This is one of the main actions of omega-3 fatty acids, controlling inflammation. And we've been studying the anti-inflammatory mechanisms of EPA and DHA for over 20 years now. And these are actually quite well described, although interesting things still pop up. So I summarize those mechanisms here. So again, the yellow is a cell membrane. The core to this is EPA and DHA being incorporated into the cell membrane. When they do that, they prevent the incorporation of arachidonic acid, an omega-6 fatty acid, and arachidonic acid gives rise to eicosanoids like prostaglandins and leukotrienes that are linked to inflammation. And lots of anti-inflammatory drugs actually target arachidonic acid metabolism. So this is a nutritional way to have this drug-like effect on arachidonic acid metabolites. As I mentioned before, EPA and DHA in membranes also affect how membrane proteins work. This seems to be really important in inflammation to reduce the vigor of inflammatory signals. These signals typically activate a transcription factor like nuclear factor kappa B. This upregulates expression of genes related to inflammation, cytokines, chemokines, adhesion molecules, enzymes, metalloproteinases that degrade tissues. So the fact that omega-3s interfere with this signaling process means they decrease the production of these inflammatory chemicals. So this is a fire, the fire of inflammation. And what I'm trying to convey to you is that membranes with more EPA and DHA result in a weaker fire because of the lower levels of production of all of these inflammatory chemicals. This is really important in conditions like arthritis, where the inflammation is degrading the joints. And we know that omega-3 fatty acids actually can be effective in treating arthritis if they're used at high dose. So these are two systematic reviews. The bottom one is also a meta-analysis showing that omega-3 supplements reduce pain and arthritis because of this anti-inflammatory effect. So people have been quite interested in other actions of omega-3s in inflammation. And we know a lot about the initiation and propagation of inflammation. So if you like, lighting the fire and keeping the fire going, and I've told you that omega-3s can help control that, but what about putting the fire out? This is called resolution of inflammation, because physiologically, inflammation must turn itself off. So there must be a fire brigade to put the fire out. So people were interested in what were the chemicals that were produced during the resolution phase of inflammation. And in doing that research, new chemicals were discovered that turn off inflammation. And these are called specialized pro-resolution mediators, or SPMs. These turn off inflammation. There are several families of these chemicals. They've given these names: resolvins, protectins, and maressins. And the amazing thing is these SPMs are produced from omega-3 fatty acids. In other words, omega-3s provide the chemicals that put out the fire of inflammation. The pathways are a little bit complicated, but EPA gives rise to E-series resolvins, DHA gives rise to D-series resolvins, maressins, and protectins. So the thinking is, we have injury, infection, stress. This initiates acute inflammation, and physiologically, acute inflammation should resolve and you get tissue repair and healing. And the omega-3 fatty acid derived SPM are important in the physiological resolution of inflammation. If that doesn't happen, the inflammation becomes chronic, and that can cause pathology, infection, autoimmune disease, and even in some circumstances, death. Now, in model systems, it's been demonstrated. So, for example, in experimental animals with, asthma, arthritis, inflammatory bowel disease, sepsis, all of those things, providing the SPMs resolves inflammation. So there's experimental description that omega-3 fatty acid derived chemicals can resolve ongoing inflammation. So it's been argued that inflammation doesn't resolve and becomes chronic because of a shortage of these chemicals. And of course, omega-3s are the precursors of these chemicals. So this would be a shortage of omega-3s. So I've added on to my scheme here, as well as lighting a weaker fire, that omega-3s are the substrates to the things, the chemicals that put out the fire of inflammation, the SPMs. This might be really important in aging, I think, because there's a process called inflammaging. So I already mentioned inflammation in the context of arthritis, asthma, inflammatory bowel disease. These are chronic inflammatory diseases that can be treated with anti-inflammatory medications. But as we age, there's a sort of silent, low-grade inflammation that increases. And this so-called inflammaging seems to underlie the development of vascular disease, metabolic disease, cognitive decline, loss of lean mass, immune decline, and some cancers. And because of their role, both as anti-inflammatory metabolites, but as precursors of pro-resolving metabolites, I think EPA and DHA can have a really important role in mitigating inflammaging, perhaps slowing the progress of inflammaging, or even treating ongoing inflammaging. And this maybe explains why EPA and DHA actually can be successfully used to lower risk of vascular disease, lower risk of metabolic disease, lower risk of cognitive decline. There are studies showing they help maintain lean mass, maintain immune function, and they may be lower risk of some cancers. So heart disease is maybe the prototypical example here. And omega-3 fatty acids are well described to lower the risk of heart disease. That's actually one of the main reasons why there are recommendations for people to consume omega-3s. And they do this through the beneficial modification of multiple risk factors, some of which I already mentioned: blood pressure, triglycerides, endothelial dysfunction, thrombosis, cardiac rhythm, heart rate, and heart rate variability are all modified by omega-3s, as is inflammation, which I've just mentioned now. As a result of these sorts of effects, in Europe, there are EFSA-approved health claims for EPA and DHA, and this is the wording of those claims, that EPA and DHA contribute to maintenance of normal blood pressure, normal triglyceride levels, and normal function of the heart. So the evidence base is sufficiently robust that there are health claims around EPA and DHA in the context of cardiovascular risk and heart disease. So I think if we put all this together, I've talked about omega-3s in pregnancy, in school children, in people with arthritis, and in older people at risk of inflammation, where omega-3s seem to modify cell and tissue function in a way that relates to benefits to health. So I think it's pretty clear that EPA and DHA are necessary for optimal cellular function and optimal health right across the life course. So how much do we actually need? So these are the recommendations for omega-3 intake by different organizations. And you see we're talking about 250, maybe up to 610 milligrams per day as the recommendations, with these added recommendations in pregnancy and lactation, recognizing the important role of DHA, particularly in early visual and mental development. So just to summarize, what I've told you is that EPA and particularly DHA are not easily produced in the human body and have to be consumed in the diet. That they're normally consumed in low amounts, and actually most people don't meet the recommendations. That's very well described. But we know that if people increase their intake of EPA and DHA, they have higher amounts of EPA and DHA in blood, in cells, and tissues, that as a result of that, they act through multiple mechanisms to improve cell and tissue function, and that these mechanisms promote health and well-being, and that this is recognized through dietary recommendations by many organizations, including the WHO, and in approved health claims in Europe and maybe elsewhere. And then finally, just to emphasize that most people don't meet the current recommendations. Thanks very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Professor Gelder, and most welcome, and thank you for being with us, and really it's amazing, informative session. I will be just taking some, maybe one or two questions, because some of the questions there were answered by your talk at the end. But I cannot see anymore the, Kim, I cannot see the, Kim?
Yes, Doctora.
I can't see anymore the screen. Okay, you can ask the question, please, Kim. Go ahead, please.
All right. Good afternoon to all. I would like to know, is there any toxicity consuming omega-3 acids on regular basis?
Yeah. So the levels that people could consume through food or through supplement intake have no adverse effects. In some countries, and actually in Europe, there is a sort of a stated upper limit, which is something like 5 or 6 grams per day, depending upon who is setting the limit. But 5 or 6 grams per day is a huge amount that would be almost impossible to consume. So I don't think there's a concern about adverse effects.
Okay, I have another question. Although the bioavailability of many supplements is generally not seen to be potent, what is the case of EPA and DHA supplementation, please?
Yeah, so our body is set up to digest and absorb fat very efficiently. And most fat in the diet is in the form of triglycerides. And most omega-3s you get in fish or in supplements is in the form of triglycerides. So the bioavailability of these fatty acids is very high, over 95%. Of course, you have to consume them with a meal. So if you take supplements, you should consume them with or around a meal, not in the absence of a meal. That doesn't help.
Again, there is two questions, different question, but similar. One of them about the pregnant woman taking omega-3 during full term, and also if there is any toxicity for the omega-3 supplementation, adverse effect is a similar.
Yeah. So we already dealt with adverse effects. So you'll see that the recommendations for pregnant and lactating women are actually higher than the recommendations for intake for the rest of the adult population. And that's because those fatty acids are really important for infant development, particularly the brain and the eye. And it's well described that if women have low intakes, the baby is born with lower status, and the visual and mental development is not as good as it could be. I mean, you don't get, retardation with a modest decrease in omega-3s, but just the development isn't quite as good as it could be.
Thank you so much. So and we have a few questions left, but unfortunately we have to end now because we need to move to the next session. I think many of the questions there were answered by your talk already. This is why we had to choose some of the questions which we felt that it will benefit, and the combination of different questions together. Thank you so much, Professor Gelder, and we look forward to your next session, inshallah, during the conference. Thanks.
Great. Thanks so much. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the conference.
Thank you. So now we move to the next session, which will be moderated by my friend, Dr. Wafa Ayesh, and all our friends as speakers. I look forward really to your input here and to, as always, to contribute to the success of this conference. Thank you so much.
Hi. Good afternoon, everybody. Actually, I'm lucky to be in this session. I don't know. I feel like I'm like a ghost. Can you see my picture clearly? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know what happened with the picture, but first of all, I'm so honored to be in the International Growth Development Conference with my colleagues, Professor Aisha and Professor Laila, and her amazing team. Of course, this is one of the successful congresses that I love always to attend and to be a part of a member of their speakers or moderators. Part of this beautiful International Growth and Development Conference. Now, the speakers as well are my friends, as well as they are leaders in their team. I will start with Professor Joseph Haddad, the King, I call him. He's a professor of pediatrics in St. George University Hospital, Faculty of Medicine, Palman University, Beirut. He's the advisor to the Minister of Social Affairs and the Labor of Lebanese government, as well as advisor in the Minister of Environment, coordinator in the Global Movement of Children of Lebanon. He is volunteer in so many societies that help children, such as he's a consultant in the UNICEF Lebanon Crisis for nutritional issues. He's a member of the Higher Council of Disabled Person Ministry of Social Affairs. Professor Haddad has a lot of researches, a lot of talks. He's a very well known in his field, and he's going to talk to us today about the oral tolerance, myth or reality. The floor is yours, Dr. Haddad, and nice to see you.
Merci. Thank you very much. Thank you for this wonderful introduction. And I also thanks Laila and Aisha for their excellent meeting. I wish that I was physically present. Unfortunately, the COVID banned everything. I'm actually in Ivory Coast, Abidjan, so it's far away from you, and at least 4 hours difference of timing. So
nice to see you. We have 20 minutes, Doctor. The floor is yours.
yeah. I will share the screen now.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Yes.
Kim?
Share. Is that right? That's good.
Yes, Professor.
Yes,
Yeah.
Professor. Please go ahead.
Okay. Let's move on this topic, which is a very interesting topic, and this will lead us to something that we all wish to know, is what and when to introduce the food in early childhood. So do early introduction of food means induction of oral tolerance? That is the big question. Before initiating the lecture, I want to show you something that was extremely well recognized by Gedeon, Professor Gedeon, the dual allergen hypothesis, which means that whenever you have an allergic disease like eczema, you are sensitized by the exposure of the allergens to your skin. And to counterbalance this cutaneous exposure, the oral exposure will certainly induce the tolerance. This is the pathway, and this is the pathway. So there is a interacting pathways between the cutaneous exposure, which leads to allergy by boosting the Th2 memory, and the oral exposure, which certainly lead to tolerance to counterbalance this cutaneous exposure, the allergy. So this is what we call the dual allergen hypothesis. Let's go through now those issues. So what are actually the available studies or analysis on food and introduction of food in early childhood? This is a paper which has been published in 2013 showing that early and late introduction of allergenic food would increase the risk of allergic disease. Before 4 months, there is a risk, and between 6 and 9 months, the risk is the same. So clearly, there is a timing between 3 and 8 months to introduce the food. So what is the exact timing that we have? If we look into the literature and the WHO recommendation, not before 6 months. However, the Europeans and developing countries wish or started to introduce feeding between 4 to 6 months. However, the current practice is variable. It varies between countries, cultural factors, food availability. Unfortunately, the trend of excessive exclusive breastfeeding is decreasing all over the world. The early introduction before 4 months is still in high proportion with formula-fed infants, and there is a low, and in low-income countries, they suffer the most. This is just to show you, you are all aware about this cartoon, showing that if we move and if we enhance the T regulation, we will enhance the tolerance and we will counterbalance between allergy and infection. So what now are the markers of food allergy that we have? We do know that sensitization, that is what we call a sensitization phenotype. However, sensitization means specific IgE to food. Sensitization predisposed to food allergy, but not all sensitized infants showed allergy. This is an interesting paper that showed that there is the infant that were sensitized may not predispose to food allergy, and this sensitization would be enhanced to allergy whenever parental atopy is detected. So sensitization is boosted by the parental atopy. You may be sensitized to food, but you may not show or exhibit your allergy. But if you are sensitized to a food allergen and your parent is atopic, then the chance or the incidence to get allergy is more important. So parental atopy is one of the main factors that would certainly is a marker of allergy. What are the markers of tolerance and food allergy? The tolerance are now being diagnosed or at least screened by the IgG4. IgG4 seems to be marker of food tolerance and are used actually to screen the food tolerance in many studies, as we will demonstrate later on. So the question, is there a window of opportunity to introduce allergenic food between 4 to 6 months? Those are the highly allergenic food that are available that we know: milk, egg, peanut, tree nut, wheat, salt, etc. So is there a window of opportunity to introduce allergenic food? The question is certainly by clinical evidence. And as you may know, if we move to the strength of evidence, we need to rely on either randomized control trial or systemic reviews. Cohort studies, case reports, and expert opinion are less strengthened than the others. So let's see what we have in our pipeline as systemic reviews and randomized control trials in this issue. So the first part would certainly relate to introduction of allergenic food in high-risk population, studies that has proved that there is an oral tolerance. The 4 studies that I will exhibit now, I will show now, are LEAP or LEAP-on studies, PERTI, STEP, or BEAT. Let's start by the LEAP study and LEAP-on study, which are the most famous one, has been published in the New England Journal of Medicine in 2016, and this LEAP and LEAP-on study has compared 2 groups of children, one where they have introduced peanuts and the other were avoidance, and they have screened them, followed them until 72 months of age. And in the first slide, I will show you that sensitization rate, this is the pre-protocol population in both primary trial and follow-up study, showed that the skin prick test negative are lesser in the group that was subjected to early consumption of peanut. Screen positive cohort also is the positive is less, and overall there is a decrease in the skin prick test in the group that has been subjected to consume peanuts early. And also that in this study they have shown that there is a positive marker of oral tolerance, as shown here, but an increase in IgA and an increase in IG4. So clearly this study has shown clinically that there is a benefit in early introduction of peanut in high allergenic population, and showed also biologically, immunologically, that the markers are well shown here, that there is a positive markers of oral tolerance. The second one is the PERTI trial also. This is a 2-step egg introduction for prevention of egg allergy in high-risk infants with eczema, a randomized double-blind placebo-controlled trial, and showed also that with the infant who they have introduced early, between 4 and 6 months, the egg, there is a prevalence, a net decrease in the prevalence of egg allergy, as shown in this cartoon. This is published in 2017. And also in this study, they have shown that there is a positive markers of oral tolerance, either by increasing the IgA or increasing the IgG4. So this study also has shown that introduction of early allergens has 2 benefits, clinically and biologically, immunologically. The STEP trial did not show, this is the unique one that did not show no evidence of clinical benefit. However, it showed a positive markers of oral tolerance. As you may notice here, at 12 months, there is an increase in IgG4. So, and the last one is a randomized trial of egg introduction from 4 months in age at risk for egg allergy. There is also here a decrease, as you see, in the proportion of infants sensitized to egg, and also an increase in the markers of oral tolerance. So BEAT trial also has led to the same conclusion that the the 3 previous studies. So this is my take-home message 1. Introduction of allergenic food in high-risk population. Studies with proved oral tolerance. Evidence is grade 1B. You may start at 4 months introduction of allergenic food in highly allergenic, in high-risk population, but they should have tolerated rice, cereal, or fruit or vegetables before introducing this. So what about the general population? What about the introduction of allergenic food in general population? The first study is from October 2010, when can early production of egg prevent egg allergy in infant, a population-based study. And here also, this is a low-risk infant, this is a high-risk infant, and in both groups, it seemed that the introduction between 4 and 6 months has led to a decrease in egg sensitization. So introduction of cooked egg might protect against egg allergy. The second one is a randomized trial of introduction of allergenic food in breastfed infants. Here also, there is, as you may see, a decrease in the prevalence of sensitization in the group where they have introduced many allergenic foods. This study may show also the effect of breast milk, the effect of breast milk alone, and the effect of the breast milk associated with allergenic introduction of allergenic food. So the breast milk, as per se, is not alone a way to decrease allergy, but also when you introduce early allergenic food, you will induce oral tolerance again with breastfeeding. This is the HEAP trial. Also, recruitment, screening, randomization, and final assessment at 12 months, where they have also introduced hen's egg between 4 to 6 months. And this is also have shown clinically that there is a decrease in the hen's egg allergy in the group who has been introduced egg and in general population. And this is not a high-risk group. What about now the timing of allergenic introduction and the risk of allergic autoimmune disease? This is a systematic and review and meta-analysis published in JAMA in 2016. And this is the dietary introduction of food, of allergic food. And you see, whenever you introduce egg allergy, you certainly end up in the general population with a decreased risk of food allergy. It goes the same with peanut allergy. However, milk does not have the same effect of oral tolerance. So for the general population too, egg introduction and peanut allergy, when peanut introduction early would certainly may decrease the food allergy. What about the egg sensitization in this cartoon also? It seems that there is no effect on egg sensitization, no effect on peanut sensitization, and no effect on milk sensitization. As I have told you, sensitization does not mean allergy, 100%. So this is, what about early introduction of fish, for instance, and allergic sensitization rhinitis? That is all over, as you may see here in this cartoon, a decrease in the risk of allergic sensitization whenever you introduce early fish. Is there an effect on, this is the same, on allergic rhinitis? Is there an effect, a negative effect on gluten and risk of celiac disease? No. early introduction of allergenic food does not increase the risk of gluten or celiac disease. So, in highly allergenic, this is my take-home message too, and the last one, introduction of allergenic food in general population certainly induce oral tolerance. Highly allergenic food can be gradually and carefully introduced. Exception is made for cow's milk, as we have noticed. Cow's milk product, baked goods, cheese, and yogurt are not restricted. Thank you for your attention, and I think I have made it within 15 minutes.
Excellent timing, perfect as always. Let's go for if there's any questions for Dr. Haddad. Amazing, doctor. It's really on time. Perfect, perfect. Do we have any questions? Yeah. Kim, do you have any? No, I can't see any. It was so clear, actually, to the point. That's.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was. As always, يا دكتور.
أهلا وفاء. اشتقنا.
والله. Can I ask you a question?
Yes, of course.
Where did it go? Yeah. Can you build a tolerance of food allergy? Can we build it? The tolerance of the food allergy?
Can we build it?
Can we build a tolerance of food allergies?
Yes, you can build it. This is what we have, this is what the studies have shown.
Yeah.
The studies have shown that you may induce oral tolerance by
starting early.
Yeah, introducing early, not late, between 4 to 6 months in general population and also in highly risk. So introduction of peanut, for instance, would lead to less food allergy on the others, allergens also, on fish, on egg, on milk. So there is a cross immunity between those allergens.
Excellent. For cases where you develop intolerance as you age, where is it? 1 second, the question went down, I believe. Hold on, there's now so many questions. Okay, what is the interval between introducing 2 allergic food?
Well, there is no timing, but they must be gradually integrated in not at the same time. We can start by introducing egg and later on fish, but not at the same moment. Peanut is not traditional in our culture, so peanut is not traditional in our culture. But egg and fish are so hugely used, so we can introduce them at least at say 1 month of interval.
I will keep the questions to later on in the box, but I'm just gonna, if you don't mind to answer this question. So if there is a child was diagnosed with G6PD, glucose 6-phosphate deficiency after birth, so it is safe to introduce little peanuts?
Yes, of course.
Because we consider the same, to check that.
Yeah, of course.
Dr. Joseph, there's a lot of questions popping in. What about strawberries? So I think fava beans, which is again for the glucose.
Fava beans is for the G6PD deficiencies. So sure, that will not introduce it. However, strawberry, there is no, if you introduce early the allergens, you will end up with a less food allergy. So strawberry, and so you can introduce them later at 9-10 months, but we can introduce them. I think there is no in general population.
Thank you, Dr. Joseph. I have to end because we are out of time.
Okay.
And I'm really thankful. Hopefully we will meet soon, face to face.
Inshallah.
From you again from Lebanon to my dear friend Carla. Professor Joseph, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Ahlan. Now we have a famous TV lady who have started her program. She's a pioneer actually in the Arab world, a dear friend as well, Professor Carla Habib Murad. She started very early in 1997, her pioneer Arab world television, first actually program delegated to dietitians. Professor Dr. Habib, she's a lecturer in the Department of Nutrition at IUB University. She's a scientific coordinator for Healthier Kids initiative in the Middle East region. And she's also the founder of the healthy food concept, Carla's Good Food. She received in December 2007 the award of Outstanding Achievement in Nutrition Awareness and Education from the American University of Beirut. Well deserved, Professor Carla. And she has published several books, beautiful ones. You can take the recipes and just implement them. And also she has many publications in scientific peer-reviewed journals. Dr. Habib, she's really, Carla, she's a public figure and beautiful lady in and out. So the floor is yours, Professor Carla. Kim, is Professor Carla ready?
Hi Wafa.
يسعد هالوش يسعد هالطلة اشتقنا لك حبيبتي.
I miss you too, and thank you for the beautiful introduction. As always, you and me قلوب عن بعضها, and of course I would like to thank Dr. Aisha Dahiri and Dr. Leila Sheikh for inviting me. I never miss an IGD conference, as you said yourself. Unfortunately, we are not physically together. Usually we take this opportunity to meet and catch up as we usually do. But I mean, at least we are there together, even if it's virtually. I'm going to share my screen.
Yes, you're going to talk about the role of public-private partnership addressing obesity.
Yes.
The floor is yours with 20 minutes.
Yes, exactly. Now, I don't know why I don't have the background, although I did my best to have the background behind my face.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
It's fine. Okay. So as you said, Wafa, I'm going to talk today about the role of public-private partnerships in addressing childhood obesity. And this is becoming a very important topic nowadays. And I'm going to use evidence from the implementation of our program, the Ajal Salima program, its implementation and replication in the region. So just a few talks, as we all know about childhood obesity being an issue at both global and local level. However, when we look at low to middle income countries, we see that they are now more vulnerable to what we call the double or triple burden of malnutrition, where both overweight and obesity coexist. So quickly, we know that globally, the rates of obesity have more than doubled in developing countries specifically, and at the national level in our country, this is even getting worse. So you see in this figure, whether it's with males or females, of course, males more than females, we have increasing rates of overweight and obesity, with Kuwait, KSA, Egypt, UAE, and Qatar leading in this problem, followed by Lebanon and for males. And the situation is a little bit different in females. Of course, we have noticed that in the MENA region specifically, 75% of our youth are not sufficiently active and do not meet the recommendations and guidelines for physical activity. And this is, I think, even worse now with the pandemic. Of course, the shift in eating habits and lifestyle, whether from a traditional eating habits or traditional cultures culture to westernized cultures, the increased consumption of foods rich in fat and calories, all these actually contribute to increase obesity rates in our region. And that's why we need interventions. I think that many of you are familiar with our pilot study in 2008, Kanz al-Sahha, coupled with the Healthy Pals publications around the first pilot study to promote healthy eating and physical activity in Lebanese school children. At the same time, around that time as well, also we had the Nestle for Healthier Kids global initiative around also encouraging and promoting healthy eating habits and physical activity in children. So this led to the launch in 2010 to Ajyal Salima, jointly launched by the American University of Beirut, Nestle, MENA, and in collaboration with the Ministry of Education and Higher Education. I will talk more about this unique partnership, but first, for those of you who do not know or haven't heard about our program, just a quickly, I'll explain about the program and its components. So Ajyal Salima actually is addressed to children between 8 and 14 years of age, and it works on specific objectives to encourage children to eat healthy, to move more, and we choose specific objectives so that the change in habits we actually see change in habits. The program is a school-based program, culturally sensitive, theory-based, and it is multi-component. So we have in-class activities, a program targeting parents, and or a component targeting parents. Another component where we work hand in hand with the food service, and let us not forget training the trainers or training the teachers to ensure, of course, sustainability. Now, for all those of you who are interested, our program is evidence-based, and we do have three publications around the pilot study and another publication specifically for Ajyal Salima. The last one, we're proud to talk about the longitudinal effect of Ajyal Salima on changing children's habits, those who have followed the program for 2 years, and also in affecting BMI. It's not the scope of the talk today to mention these in details, but of course you're free to ask me any questions related to these publications. So Ajyal Salima program is based on public-private partnerships. Now, I'll take a moment and just talk about the limited public resources that we suffer from in this part of the world, especially when it comes to promoting health messages or programs related to health promotion. So a single sector solution is really hardly applicable. And recently, the United Nations and the WHO encourage governments and civil society to engage with the private sector through public-private partnerships to address malnutrition. Actually, the most successful initiatives are those that bring together government agencies, non-governmental agencies, policymakers, schools, the food industry, and the media. So there are numerous types of public-private partnerships or private-public partnerships, however we would like to call them. And from when we're talking different types, this is from it could be a commercially focused partnership to a purely researched science-based programs. But for the sake of this lecture today, I'm going to concentrate my talk on community programs. And actually, these are now partnerships related to community programs are now recognized as central for addressing childhood obesity. So what are the benefits for such partnerships? Of course, one of an important benefit that we personally experienced in Ajal Salima is raising the visibility of nutrition and health on policy agendas. And this is through mobilizing funds, facilitating technology transfers, and of course, maximizing resources across partners organizations. So what I'll be sharing with you, of course, is based on the literature, but also based on our personal experience in Ajal Salima. Now, we should not forget that one of the important key factors for sustainable health programs is private-public partnerships, and we have seen this in many publications, and this is one of our key success stories in Ajal Salima. Of course, enriching the capacity, the quality and reach of public health services is also one of the key benefits of public-private partnerships. All of this should be built on solid and transparent partnerships with key stakeholders. Now, we do have challenges, and we need to know what are these challenges to be able to address them. One of the challenge that we were able to actually address is the complexity of nutrition pathways, specifically obesity. Obesity is a multifactorial problem, and that's not actually always easy to establish a partnership where the goals are the same between all partners. Another factor that poses a real challenge is an imbalance in power, where usually the private sector is more favored, and this create certain tensions. This is why efforts should be made towards balancing private commercial interests with public health interests. And of course, we should make sure to ensure that there is a mutual trust, especially with the private sector, because we do see the availability and aggressive advertising of foods that are rich
Dr. Wafa, can we hear Dr. Wafa?
I cannot hear her, no. It's muted.
Okay, I think there is a problem with the net happened in with Carla.
I think it's from the part of Dr. Carla.
Yes, I'll try. 2 minutes to go.
Yeah, okay, no problem. I tried to call her. Okay, take care. Bye. Hello?
Yeah.
You removed her? Okay, no.
Dr. Layla, we can start with Dr. Wael, and if we have, if he's ready, because
okay.
Difficulties.
Yes, I think there is a problem with the electricity. I'll try to call Carla for 1 minute. 1 second, please.
Yes, please. Thank you.
She joined. Dr. Carla is already in the panel.
She's back?
Yes, she's back. Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah. We have to. Nice to have you back, Doctor. It's muted, Dr. Carla. It's muted, Habibi.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry for the interruption. I'm so sorry.
No problem, Doctora. But we have to hurry, Ashan, Dr.
Yeah, I'm sharing the screen again.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay.
Nice to have you.
Okay, so what are the principles we were cut at this point? I would say, yes, I think we were cut here. So trust is one of the important, of course, issues where mutual trust, I would say, is at the utmost of our list as best practices. Trust should be through a clear understanding between partners and, of course, cooperation and transparency. When it comes to conflict of interest, always look at clearly understood and agreed upon objectives in the beginning in order to, of course, comply with ethical codes. And finally, monitoring and evaluation should be there for accountability. So when we're talking accountability, this is for all partners, and this helps reaching positive results and solve problems as early as possible. So those are the 6 basic principles for private-public engagement programs. These have proven to where we can reach success. So quickly, so that we don't waste time, I'll just mention that we need to have a clear rationale, especially for local engagement, through I would say the guidelines to ensure that our program is locally adaptable, and at the same time we should build programs on solid partnerships. And it seems that one of the important partnerships is when you have on board the private industry with the government and NGOs. Long-term commitment is also an important principle, where I would say each country should commit to running the program for several years and create a local coordinating team. Always use science-driven approach, as you have seen with our Ajal Salima programs and publications. Monitoring and evaluation, as I mentioned earlier. And again, transparency, accountability, always share your information, your reports with all stakeholders, and even with the partners, and even, why not, with the public. Now, this is I'll give you examples through our Ajal Salima program, where academia, as in the American University of AUB and Nestle, join action to actually promote and implement the program all over the region. So our role as academia is specifically in program development, scientific evaluation, research, training, with Nestle helping us in public relations, social media reach, provision of support, and actually linking all these together. And on the other side, the schools and the public sector, through NGOs, through governments, will be the communication channel and reaching the wider community, and in this, the children. So, and this slide summarizes actually how Ajal Salima is built on private-public partnerships, with the public partners different in each country. These can be governments, ministries of education, ministries of health, or of course non-governmental agencies. So briefly, I'll go into the implementation structure in each country. In Lebanon, the Ministry of Education was on board with us since the beginning. For the implementation, we started through a team of nutritionists, then followed by school teachers and health educators. We have reached so far more than 400 schools and more than 55,000 children. This is the chart for the Ministry of Higher Education, where under the ministry, the General Directorate of Education has its health and education unit, and they have actually health educators all over the country. In 2014, the ministry adopted Ajal Salima in its health education unit, which helps of course, spreading and sustaining the implementation of the program. In the UAE, we had a pilot study in 2012 with the help of the government of Dubai Health Authority. And this was implemented for 2 years. In KSA, similarly, we had the help of another private partner and the Ministry of Health and Ministry of Education. In Jordan, in 2015, it was launched. This is where the NGO Royal Health Awareness Society came on board with us, along with the Ministries of Health and Education. And the program was endorsed by Her Majesty the Queen Rania. We have reached so far more than 145 schools and more than 30,000 children. Palestine, we were so proud of introducing the program in Palestine with the help of the Ministries of Education, mainly the Ministry of Education, who is the gatekeeper and actually taking this program on board. We have reached so far 125 schools and 14,000 children. In Bahrain, and this was our last addition, our partners are the Ministries of Health and Education. Now, as you can see, it differs from country to country depending on what they need and their governance. So sometimes it's only one ministry, and some other time it's both ministries. In Bahrain, we unfortunately in 2019, I would say 20, it was a little bit rough due to COVID-19. So we started with 9 schools and 2,000 children. Now, a few pictures of our training workshops. And yes.
We are already out of time, like it's 7 minutes with Cairo.
Okay, so I wanted to share with you some of the results, but it's fine. We can share this at a later time. The results are encouraging in terms of changing knowledge and self-efficacy in most of the countries. And of course, change in habits was apparent also in many countries, whether in increasing fruits and vegetable consumption, decreasing chips, soft drinks intake, or increasing physical activity. So I'm happy to show also that the partners actually met during the IGD 2018, and we are looking forward to meet again physically, not virtually.
Inshallah. Thank you, Professor Carla. Actually, I have a couple of questions for you. Can you forgive me that I cannot share it? We will send it to you so you can, I promise all the audience to get back with Professor Carla's answer to your question, Natalie, and somebody calling about the poor implementation policies. So I'm so sorry because Professor Wael is waiting from Cairo. From Lebanon, from Dubai to Lebanon, Carla, you are amazing as always. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
We are going from you to Cairo for Professor Wael, who's going to talk about the colostrum and why colostrum. Kim, I hope Professor Wael is ready.
Yes, I am with you.
يا أهلا.
مساء الخيرات.
يا ستار، أهلا وسهلا.
مساء الخيرات على حضرتك.
مساءك فل يا دكتور، أهلا وسهلا بيك، نورتنا. بروفيسور وائل دائما ما شاء الله عنده كوكبة من البيدياتريشنز who are interested. He is one of the unique professors in pediatric that he is very, very famous in knowing a lot about nutrition. And he have a lot of soldiers talking about nutrition, which is inspiring to us as dietitians as well as pediatricians. Professor Wael Bahbah, he is a professor and a consultant in the pediatric and pediatric clinical nutrition in the Faculty of Medicine in Monofia University, Egypt. He runs the feeding clinic and attend to children and babies feeding difficulties, failure to thrive, all the nutrition problem. You will have Professor Wael solutions to have them. Professor Wael, he have a lot of publication, and we will never forget that he is the first one who launched his Pedia Egypt Congress, which is, I'm honored to be always a speaker with him, with a lot of intimate speakers as well, one of them, Dr. Aisha, as well as Dr. Layla. Professor Wael, he is an active professor with so many academies, Egypt Academy of Pediatrics, and he have recently published a very new guidelines and studies from Cairo to use as a tool in his country. Famous and popular and humble as well, and clever. Thank you, Dr. Wa.
Thank you, Professor Wafa, and thank you, Professor Aisha, Dr. Layla. Kind invitation. دكتور وفاء طبعا يعني سعيد جدا بوجودي مع حضرتك طبعا.
الله يخليك، شرف لينا. تفضل.
أنا I know that we are exceeding our time. I will begin the sentence why colostrum, secrets behind science. First, colostrum in Arabic word means اللبأ، معجزة الله في الأرض، شراب ودواء ووقاية وشفاء. ما هو اللبأ؟ مادة صمغية تخرج من ثدي الأم، والتي تخرج أيضا من ضرع الماشية في أول 3 أيام بعد الولادة مباشرة، ويشربها الإنسان، التي ورد ذكرها في القرآن الكريم بشكل غير مباشر في الآية: وإن لكم في الأنعام لعبرة نسقيكم مما في بطونها ولكم فيها منافع كثيرة ومنها تأكلون. أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما لهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون. صدق الله العظيم. Now, agenda it is, what is colostrum? How does colostrum work? Colostrum for newborn, human colostrum versus whole milk, and what makes colostrum so beneficial? How long is colostrum good for the fridge? Bovine colostrum versus human colostrum, and health benefits application of bovine colostrum. What is colostrum? Colostrum is the baby first milk, and it is a biological soup. Breast produce colostrum being during pregnancy. Most of mothers don't even know it's here unless they leak a bit towards the end of pregnancy. Body start making it about 3 to 4 months into pregnancy, and it may leak from breasts while they are pregnant. Colostrum, it is yellow to orange in color, thick and sticky, as we show. It is low fat, high carbohydrate, protein, and antibodies, easy to digest, and it is full of immune-enhancing antibody and other important immune factor and essential growth factor. This is the composition: nutritional factor like energy, protein, vitamin, mineral, carbohydrate, fat, immune factor IgA, IgG, IgM, polypeptide, oligosaccharide, cytokine, lactalbumin, and lysosome, growth factor like insulin, like growth factor, and others. How does colostrum work? Most of infectious diseases causing organism enter the body through mucous membrane of the intestinal tract. Studies revealed that high percentage of antibody and immunoglobulin present in colostrum are believed not to be absorbed but remain in the intestinal tract when they attack diseases causing organism, for they can penetrate the body and cause the disease. The remainder are absorbed and distributed to assist in our internal defense processes, though this combination is a unique and effective. Also, colostrum play a baby role in gastrointestinal tract, as a newborn newborn intestine are very permeable. Colostrum seals the hole by painting the gastrointestinal tract with a barrier, which mostly prevent foreign substance. Also has a laxative effect for encouraging the passing of meconium. Also, it clears excess bilirubin, so helps prevent of jaundice. This is Daniel Rudman, which call what colostrum lacks of volume, it makes it up for its power. Colostrum for the newborn. Colostrum is a very concentrated and the volume produce a very small amount. In the first 24 hours, it gives 37 milliliter of colostrum produced. Babies take an average from 7 to 14 milliliter at each feeding. Then the baby is breastfed early. Breast will begin producing mature colostrum around the third and fourth day, so increase in volume and they become more thinner and white to be more opaque. Then in those first few days, it is extremely important for breastfeeding at least 8 to 11 times each 24 hours to get the benefits of colostrum and stimulate the production of plentiful supply of mature milk. Colostrum is a natural and 100% safe vaccine, contain antibody, also contain immunoglobulin like immunoglobulin A and immunoglobulin G. Also provide not only a perfect nutrition tailored to meet the newborn, to a large amount of living cell which will defend the baby against many harmful agents. What else? High concentration of leukocyte, a protective white blood cell. Also, colostrum gradually changes to mature milk, which is this transition period. The concentration of antibodies in the milk decreases, but can greatly increase. It has also proven that providing human colostrum as an initial diet improves the gut maturation risk of infection in preterm infants. This is the colostrum. Fori milk, hind milk. Colostrum, as we know, the first. Fori milk mature consists of fori milk. Mature milk consists of fori milk and hind milk. Fori milk contain plenty of lactose and protein, but very little fat and few calories. Also, hind milk received at the end of breastfeeding contain more fat and calories. Your baby needs so a fori milk and hind milk for overall loss. This is the comparison between human colostrum versus whole milk. What we see as a total protein. Total protein here, 2.3 in human colostrum, 0.9 in mature human. Also, immunoglobulins by far more than mature milk and fat less than immature milk. What makes colostrum so beneficial? Colostrum has over 90 known components of colostrum. The primary component, immune factor, growth factor, vitamin, mineral, and amino acid. Immune factor, more than 20 antibody. Also immunoglobulin, also contain proline-rich polypeptide that also support the underactive immune system. What else? Factor, like which is affected brain mood, growth factor in normal growth, also as a full in diet and non-diet, assess internal regulation like blood glucose, brain chemical, support healing skin and the repair of body RNA and DNA. Other beneficial components like mineral and vitamin, and we'll discuss in brief, amino acid. Also, immune factor, IgG, IgM, IgD, IgE, all of these are immune factor. Secretory IgA present in human colostrum. All this also lactoferrin, iron, transferrin, glycoprotein, lactalbumin, cytokine, proline-rich polypeptide as we see before, lysosome, gamma globulin, all these are immune factor present in human colostrum. Growth factor like epithelial growth factor, fibroblast growth factor, insulin-like growth factor 1 and 2, growth hormone also present, transforming growth factor and other growth factor for in human colostrum. Vitamin like vitamin B6, B12, all of these vitamins present in human colostrum. Mineral like calcium, chromium, iron, magnesium, phosphorus, zinc, all of this present. Essential amino acid present in human colostrum and non-essential acid also present. Also additional factor, as they say, there's a lot of factor present in human colostrum. And now, how long colostrum good for in the fridge? Guidelines for breast milk storage as follows. Freshly expressed breast milk may be kept at a room temperature for 15 hours. If the baby is not latching, hand express at least 8 times a day and feed baby by spoon or cup. Don't use as a pump for increasing the edema in the areola and slowing stoppage of milk transfer. What else then? The frozen colostrum can be stored for up to 3 months in the freezer and 6 months in the deep freezer. Once so, should be used within 24 hours. Store in the syringe and can be used else. This is Albert Sabin. Albert Sabin made the first oral vaccine against polio. The immunoglobulin he used came from bovine colostrum. When antibiotic begin to appear, interest of colostrum won. Now that antibiotic resistance strain of pathogen have developed, interest is once again returning to the natural alternative to antibiotic, namely colostrum. This is, as we say, human colostrum. And now we will speak in brief in bovine colostrum versus human colostrum. What is bovine colostrum? Bovine colostrum, composition of bovine colostrum is quite different from colostrum produced by human. It is important to know that human colostrum is for babies only. However, children and adults can enjoy many health benefits of human colostrum, take a bovine or cow, especially cow colostrum supplement. Research shows only cow colostrum contains special glycoprotein and protease inhibitor, which are extremely effective protecting against destruction of colostrum by human digestive enzyme stomach acid. What else? It is recommended that newborn calves receive at least 4 liters while we use bovine colostrum. 4 liters. Mature dairy cattle produce an average 33 liters of colostrum in the first milking, first 6 hours after calving. Bovine colostrum contain high concentration of immunoglobulin G, EDM. Extra protection against infection contain about 40 times more antibody than in human colostrum. Also, human colostrum contain highest amount of lactose available. The lactose in human colostrum support a newborn brain growth and development. What else? Human colostrum has a higher concentration of casein in the provide a building block of muscle than the human counterpart. Also, a higher concentration in bovine colostrum than human colostrum in insulin-like growth factors than the human colostrum. What else compatible with any species bovine colostrum and can readily convey its full benefit to human by routine dairy supplement? Bovine colostrum contain higher amount of the same bioactive component found in human colostrum, and it has also been proven that providing bovine colostrum as a part of initial diet improving gut maturation and reduce the risk of infection in term when mother-owned milk is not available. What else? This is Egyptian study, 3-arm study in Ain Shams University, 180 preterm unit, less than 4 weeks in Talata group. We are the result in late onset sepsis. We're using late onset sepsis in early 10% and late onset sepsis 26.6%. And when we use bovine colostrum or lactoferrin by name in bovine colostrum, late onset sepsis is decreased by about 45% in the third. Bovine lactoferrin, this is the rule, causes the presence of bovine lactoferrin or lactoferrin present even in human colostrum. Colostrum inhibits growth of wide variety and the bacteria or fungi by its action or antiviral action, which prevent the entry of virus the cell, blocking the cellular receptor or by direct binding to the virus particle. And this is the comparison between human and the bovine colostrum, as we said before. Bovine colostrum as a nutritional. What mean of nutraceutical is a term combining the word nutrition and the pharmaceutical. There is an emerging evidence that bovine colostrum may be one of the promising nutraceutical which can prevent various diseases in newborn and adults. Immunoglobulins and lactoferrin present in colostrum are known to build the natural immunity in newborn, which help to reduce mortality. There is a paper properties of bovine colostrum and possibly of its use. Another paper on bovine colostrum published in 2019, which concluded that colostrum is a natural perfect first food rich in the source of IgE and proline rich polypeptide, also supplies immune factor, growth factor, vitamin, minerals, as we said, also actually 40 times rich in immune factor and human colostrum, and this than human colostrum, and it is biologically transferable to human. What is health benefit or application of bovine colostrum as we use in immunodeficiency related diarrhea, infected diarrhea, also in bovine colostrum recurrent respiratory infection, also exercise performance and body compression, bovine colostrum in metabolic diseases, also in autoimmune diseases and leaky gut syndrome, bovine colostrum in gastrointestinal disorder, and the role of bovine colostrum in the H. pylori infection and in distal colitis, also in cancer, as we contain lactoferrin. In gastroenteritis, here a combination case report and the clinical trial suggest bovine colostrum may be of beneficial in treatment of chronic diarrhea among patients with immune deficiency syndrome. Also, there is a rule against root virus and salmonella typhi infection, as well as antibiotic-related diarrhea due to presence of lactoferrin. Here, as we said, the role of lactoferrin, this is a study of successful treatment of rotavirus diarrhea in children with immunoglobulin from immunized bovine colostrum. Treatment with immunoglobulin of bovine colostrum origin is effective management of children with acute rotavirus diarrhea. Also, a study concluded that bovine colostrum has highly effective prophylactic treatment of recurrent upper respiratory tract infection and diarrhea. There is another study of effect of bovine colostrum in recurrent respiratory infection and diarrhea. Home message and conclusion: colostrum is an amazing material that, like many other things in nature, reflect the involuntary development of a unique composition that will serve the need of offspring for which it is intended. The most unique of colostrum from mammalian species occur in human and bovine species, where everything required for development of a healthy producing offspring provided with colostrum. The natural composition of colostrum favors its use as ancient food for modern time, hence can be considered as a nutraceutical. Bovine colostrum also was highly effective in prophylactic treatment of recurrent upper respiratory tract infection and diarrhea, in reducing not only the episode but also the hospitalization due to them. This result suggests that clinical application of human and bovine might soon provide a therapeutic option for a condition affecting children worldwide. And the last slide is our food. As Hippocrates said, our food should be our medicine, and our medicine should be our food. And thank you.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. On time, as always, perfect. Beautiful talk and beautiful information. Nice talk and nice points, new ones. I will take one question, Dr.
Yes. Thank
Wael.
you.
Till we have the call ready with Dr. Islam.
Yes. Islam is here or not here?
He's here in a minute.
Yes. Yes.
There's one question telling you why adult person can't benefit from the human colostrum.
Human colostrum, as we said, it is 37. Yeah, not a plentiful, 37 smaller. And this we talk about bovine colostrum. As bovine colostrum has a large or a lot of milk or colostrum to be in banking for adult.
Mm-hmm. As well, there is another question. Is bovine colostrum tolerated by infant? And this is from Noor. And can it be taken as a support supplement since it promotes muscles growth?
Yes, okay. It promotes as it increasing insulin-like growth factor and other growth factors support the muscle growth and can be tolerated by infant. In Egypt, we have a chassis containing bovine colostrum. We use it even in preterm baby to diminish late onset sepsis, or even with antibiotic adjuvant with antibiotic, or even in infection like recurrent upper respiratory tract infection and also gastroenteritis.
Mm-hmm.
So we can be put in unit from the neonatal period in preterm baby.
Excellent, excellent. Is there any questions for Professor Wael Moore, Kim, in the chat maybe? I don't see any in here in the questions and answers.
Okay.
But everybody is requesting for your talk, Dr. Wael.
Thank you, Dr. Ofe.
And they are telling
very happy to be with you.
My
Thank you for
Dr.
Laila and Dr. Aisha also.
Yeah.
For this excellent conference.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this informative and for being with us. Inshallah, we'll see you soon, either here or in Egypt. Inshallah.
Bismillah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Wael. See you soon, inshallah.
Bismillah.
Now we are going to go for Professor Islam Al-Baroudi. Is he ready?
He's not yet connected.
Yeah, not yet, but I will introduce him till so we can save time. Professor Islam, he's gonna talk about very interesting topic, which is failure to thrive, the clinical tips. Professor Islam Al-Baroudi, he is a professor and consultant of pediatric at the Faculty of Medicine, Cairo University. He is currently working in Abu Dhabi in Sheikh Khalifa Medical City, where he's working in the feeding clinic and attending to children and babies with feeding difficulties, failure to thrive, any kind of nutritional behavioral disorders. Professor Al-Baroudi is graduated from Cairo University, where he obtained his master's degree in doctorate in medicine, in general pediatric. Also, he obtained his pediatric fellowship from the Royal College of Pediatrics and Child Health from UK. He's a member of so many societies. Most of them are very popular, such as the American Academy of Pediatric. He's also in the International Board Certified Lactation Consultant. He is the international instructor of the Society of Critical Care Medicine. In addition, for a long period of experience dealing with feeding management in GI function disorder, allergy, asthma, all the special care such as renal disease, metabolic nature. He has published a lot of studies and in very popular journals. And also he started very interesting summit, the annual International Pediatric Summit Congress, very famous one. We have more than 2,000 attendees yearly, as well as he have a series of pediatric essential called Vibes. Professor Islam also now become a TV or a YouTuber. He have Hakim, Is'al Hakim on YouTube, where he discuss everything. Islam, are you in board or not yet? دايما you're muted by the way. بقول لك the queen never late, the people are early. شو يا باشا؟
No, never. You are the queen.
الله يخليك، نورت يا دكتور.
الله يخليك
أنا
تسلمي.
طبعا التوبيك تبعك من التوبكس اللي أنا كثير بحبها، وfailure to thrive very important topic، وما في أحلى منك اللي يحكي فيه تخصصه
Thank you so much.
practical وعلم. تفضل دكتور. 20 minutes يا إسلام is yours.
I'll try my best, ها؟
معروف. اتفضل يا إسلام، نورت. أهلا وسهلا.
الله يخليك تسلمي.
اتفضل.
So allow me just like to, yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much, dear Dr. Wafaa, for the nice introduction. Thank you, Dr. Aisha and Dr. Laila, for the nice invitation, for the kind invitation. And I hope all of you are doing well. And today we'll try to make it S&S. What is that? S&S, dot M&M. So to be like short and sweet. Talking about failing to thrive, what is the clinical tips that we are in need to know about it. So I'll be talking. Sorry. So this is a quote. It is the annual income if it is 20 pounds and the annual expenditure is 19.6. This result in happiness. While if the annual income is 20 pound, annual expenditure 20 pound, 0.6, this result in misery. Who's the one who's like belonging to this quote? This is Charles Dickens, and he is talking about saving. So if your income is 20 and you are having what we call it an expenditure of 19.6, this is saving, and this would result in happiness. If your annual income is 20 while your expenditure is 20.6, this is profusion, israf, and this would result in misery. So what is meant by saving in dictionary? It is a wise, look at this, it is a wise prevention of waste. So because maybe sometimes that there is no wise prevention, sometimes extra prevention may lead to some adverse reaction for a particular reason. The question is, could we apply this term in nutrition? Of course we could, because there is a multiple of variables. How much in of the energy, how much out, how much you are saving, how much you are expending. This would result in, at the end, in your net or the end weight. So that's why we could apply it and we could result in happiness or in a misery. So the nutrition effect on the growth, so either it is an under nutrition or an over nutrition, but it has its clinical impact. The under nutrition may lead to an underweight, while over nutrition may lead to an overweight and obesity. Both of them, the under nutrition and over nutrition, it is what we call it the malnutrition. So what is underweight? In a practical definition, the caloric intake that you are getting is insufficient to maintain your adequate growth. It is not matching the proper growth that you are in need of. This is very important to know about it. So what is our energy requirements? It is called, the first thing to know, our resting energy expenditure. So it is the energy expressed in kilocalories, and this is not identical to our basal metabolic rate. And of course that there is like about 55 kilocalorie. This is your resting energy expenditure, and it is decreasing while you are advancing your age. The resting energy expenditure is the basal metabolic rate plus the feeding thermal effect. So whatever regarding the nutrition that exhausted by the digestion of the nutrition. So this is called the resting energy expenditure. This is for the normal individual that it is happening. If you are adding to that the physical activity, this is called your total energy expenditure. So resting energy expenditure plus the physical activity, the energy which is needed, this is called the energy expenditure. There is some special situation that you will need or you will have to spend more energy cost. What is that special situation? In the children, in the pregnant and in the lactating woman. In the lactating woman, the secretion of the milk, you will need more energy. And for the children, this is a growing creature. So the tissue is in need for an energy to grow. And of course, for the pregnant. So this is an extra energy expenditure is needed plus the growth. So it is about 33%. And this is number 2. So you have the resting energy expenditure and you have the energy expenditure that you will use it in this special situation. 1 plus 2, this is the estimated energy requirement, which is the dietary energy needed to maintain the energy balance in a healthy, normal weight. In a healthy, normal weight. He's not an underweight. This is the estimated energy requirement. And they put a condition to be consistent with a good health, to have a good health. How much is that? It is estimated for everyone. It is 100 to 110 kilocalories in the first 2 months. Then it is decreasing with advancing the months. But not to forget something, that there is an factors would affect your estimated energy requirement. We said the growth, but don't forget, for those who are admitted at the hospital, the fever, sepsis, if there is burn, if there is trauma, if there is an extra activity. So there is a factor to be added for the estimated energy requirement. This is very important. If not, if you are not fulfilling all the estimated energy requirement, you will have a malnutrition. Here, maybe you will have 2 types of malnutrition. One of them is SAM and DAM. SAM, it is not مش الصواريخ يعني. So SAM, it is the society acquired malnutrition, which is related to the nutritional requirement. You are not fulfilling your nutritional requirement. While DAM, it is the disease associated malnutrition, and this is usually happening for those who are having chronic illnesses or for those who are admitted at the hospital. So the proper energy requirement or the total daily energy requirement, it is the resting energy expenditure plus the estimated energy requirement multiplied by the factors that we were talking about, like the fever, the simple trauma, or whatever. So the proper energy requirement based on what? It is based on your proper nutrition. And your proper nutrition will lead, if you are getting your proper nutrition, to a proper energy requirement. Why we are talking about a proper nutrition and a proper energy? What is in our mind? Because it equals a proper growth in children. If you have both of them, this would equal a proper growth. So the recommended energy allowances according to the WHO in children and the pregnant, it is the energy requirement that includes energy needs to be associated with the deposition of the tissue. If you remember, this is a growing baby, or even in the milk secretion at rates consistent with long-term good health. Why they are saying that? So not to overdo it, so you may end up having an obesity, not to be, underdoing it, so you will end up having an underweight. Both of them are the malnutrition. This is the proper growth. It is a complex process, and there is multiple factors affecting our growth. Genetic factors is there. Gestational age is very important, if he's term or a preterm. The size of the birth, that he's appropriate for gestational age, his weight, or he's small for gestational age, he's underweight or not. Medical condition and environment. Definitely, your dietary intake is one of the most impacting factor for the growth. Just for you to know that the largest risk for malnutrition is a low birth weight. It is 600% or 6 times higher to develop a malnutrition for those who are having a birth weight below than 3.5 kg. So this is, keep it in your mind, this is a clinical tip. What is the other influencing factor? Genetics, of course, the genetic predisposition. Hormonal issue, so at time of birth till the age of 2 years, it is the thyroid hormone. Then from that time, from 2 years till the time of the adolescence, that this is the growth hormone. Then at the adolescence itself, or the puberty, then it is the sex hormone. So genetics and the neuronal and the hormonal factors. Then the nutrition, at which time? In all stages. In all stages, it is the single most impacting factor for all stages. The nutrition is affecting the growth and the development. So now, according to Aspen 2017, what's the clinical definition of the malnutrition? Imbalance between nutrient requirement and intake. This is what we said in our simple definition. Then a cumulative deficit of energy, protein, and look at that, and micronutrient. So it was previously only the energy and the protein. Now we are talking about protein, energy, and micronutrients. Then you will have a negative effect on the growth and development. And of course, this is, you have to see a adverse clinical outcome to that negative effect of the growth and the development. What is the terminology that we are using to describe? So at a single point, if you are finding someone who's low weight for his age, this is underweight. Low length or height for his age, this is stunted growth. Weight for height, this is wasting. At between 2 points, and it is very low weight for age, below the 5th centile, this is failing to thrive. If it is for the weight or for the height, for the age, this is growth faltering. If it is between 2 points for weight for height, this is weight faltering. So this is the terminology that we are using, as we just said. Wasted, just to tell you, wasting refers to a child who is too thin for his height. And wasting would result from a recent rapid weight loss or maybe failure to gain a weight. For those who are moderately to severely wasted, what's the risk? There is an increased risk of death, yes. But the good point about it, that it is treatable. If you are discovering that early, it is treatable. So this is very important. Stunting, it is too short for his age. And stunting would reflect that there is a chronic undernutrition that usually happen in the critical period, with the critical period of the growth, which is early. Not only for the growth, the physical one, even for the brain development. The problem with the stunting, that it has a severe, irreversible, look at this, irreversible physical and cognitive damage. If you are leaving someone to reach that he is stunted, then he is reaching a severe, irreversible physical, cognitive damage. This is very important. The adverse effect of the stunting, not only that it is severe, but it is also, it could be lasting for a lifetime, even for the next generation. A rough estimate, they are saying for those who are stunted, that by the age of 8 years, they are at least less by 6 centimeters than those who are matching them in their potentiality. I mean, they are having the same genetic predisposition, they are having the same environmental factor, but they are stunting because of this malnutrition. So maybe they are less by 6 centimeters shorter. This is too much. And the difference will remain significant even if you are trying to treat it. Why the stunting is to that extent is doing? Because the body is trying to shrink by itself to survive. And the problem with the stunting, that usually it couldn't be reversed, but it is prevented. So again, this is yours. And if you are leaving it after the critical window that we are having, the complete recovery maybe and is unlikely. That's why it is very important to diagnose malnutrition early in life. This is very important. Should we be concerned? I told you that we should be concerned, but look at the prevalence. I mean, worldwide. So it is everywhere. In our area, in the Middle East, 20 to 40%. So of course we could know that some countries that it is, but even like in the Gulf, even that we have some malnutrition. So this is very important. Wasting prevalence globally, it is 7.5%, which is okay. Stunting for below 5 years, it is 22%. The good thing about it is that the stunting is becoming less. The problem that the wasting is increasing. Stunting is coming less, this is something good. But be careful, not those that they are wasting to be converted to be stunting. If you are not, I mean, that you are happy that you are decreasing the stunting, but those who are wasted needs to be picked early, otherwise they will be shifted to be stunted. So what we should do, definitely during the critical window, it is the prevention. Prevention is better than cure. درهم وقاية خير من قنطار علاج. So prevention. What is in our hand to do prevention? Start from the base. You know what's the base? The pregnant mother. So maternal proper nutrition is very important. Then Of course, for the newly born, the breastfeeding is the golden rule. Then appropriate formula if breastfeeding is not possible, or the complementary feeding during the weaning time, building a healthy nutritional habits to assure that they are getting the proper macro and micronutrients in the early pediatric age. This is very important. Then a proper nutritional practice for our toddler. Please avoid this junky foods, and safeguard against deficiencies and infection, because infection, it is a vicious circle to develop a malnutrition. The effect of maternal undernutrition is very important. The problem that you may think that the fetus will get his nutrition regardless the maternal nutritional status, which is not true. Our babies are not a perfect parasite. So they will be affected by the mother nutritional status if they are malnourished. This is very important. So prevention is very important, plus a clinical assessment tips that I'm gonna tell you. What's the clinical assessment tips that I'm gonna tell you? So for the diagnosis, this is very important. The growth chart, don't forget the growth chart. Whomever is coming to you at your clinic or whatever, if you are as a dietitian, as a physician, and you are saying, don't forget the growth chart. You have to plot the growth chart. Then medical history, very important to get a proper and detailed medical history. Then a bit more for the dietary history. Then of course to do a physical examination and anthropometries. Then at least, the last thing, but it is not important as the clinical sense for the lab, to do the lab. So don't forget this 5, and according to our famous dancer Fifi Abd. So growth chart, medical history, dietary history, physical examination, then you will reach the golden recommended nutritional strategy based on your diagnosis. Early diagnosis, very important to pick it in the window of opportunity. Assessment of the malnutrition could be just to have a look so you can diagnose, yes, this is short, this is underweight, and to assess the progression of the treatment. No, you cannot just only eyeball someone to say that he is undernutrition. You need to do a regular or a periodic plotting to assess his growth by the weight, by the length, by the head circumference, weight for length on the growth chart. So mirror is not always telling the truth. This is very important. Just to show you that this is a 44 inpatient panel experience actually. So they brought an experienced specialist, those who could do this inspection for someone who's having a malnutrition. And look what was the result. So if they can spot a severe malnutrition, normal, in all the severities of the malnutrition, it was not the same as the correct observation if you are doing a clinical or a lab investigation. And the more important that it was happening in the first 1 year of life, which is the window of opportunity, in the 50%. They cannot, by eyeballing, to recognize 50% of those who are really having a malnutrition. That's why it is very important to go for a proper diagnosis. This is very critical. So how to identify malnutrition? Of course, weight, then height, and weight for height for those who are below 2 years, or BMI for those who are after 2 years. This is, you are using what? Plotting all of these for the anthropometric measurement, of course, for the growth chart. Then some would help you. Sometimes the growth chart is not to that extent. So maybe sometimes that the skin fold measurement. And as we said, for the growth chart, it's the head circumference, weight, height, and weight for height. So the growth chart, and all of us, we know how to plot the age against the weight or the height according to that patient. Then we will be having the medical history. This is an isolated weight or malnutrition, or it is associated? So dig deep, maybe that there is some liver function. You may have history about that, recurrent attacks of vomiting, recurrent attacks or severe life-threatening symptoms. There is a cardiomyopathies, hearing loss, organomegaly. You have to ask about some history. Then detailed dietary assessment, and there is a different method, maybe 24-hour dietary recall. You will ask the parents, or you will have a questionnaire. or a dietary history, or to give them a food dairy technique that they should, or you admit them and observe and to see how is the consumption. This is for the Oxford one, and this is what we are using at Sheikh Khalifa Medical City. So this is the dietary assessment that you can use it. Then a dietary history, so to assess the method of the feeding, if they are like the breastfeeding pattern, the maternal diet, the formula selection, how is the preparation, how much is the volume consumed, what's the feeding technique, what is the caloric count. This is very important. Of course, examination. As we said, you were asking about history of some system problems. Then again, who head to 2 examination, so you could see some symptoms and signs for dysmorphic features, developmental delay, for the organomegaly, for neurological cardiac problems. Laboratory, you can do some laboratory, but the clinical assessment is very important. What is your first line? Is it the CBC, ESR, and ferritin? If it is not, maybe a comprehensive metabolic panel, urine analysis and culture and the stool culture. This is very important. Testing for celiac disease, nutritional testing, zinc, iron, and vitamin deficiency, and thyroid function. This is maybe your first line. If not, the second line, you may go for the bone age, sweat test. This is for cystic fibrosis, chest x-ray, bronchopulmonary, and quantiferon. Maybe that this is a chronic disease, TB or something. Abdomen and head ultrasound, ECG, echo, and chromosomal anomalies. Just for you to know, 185 children in this study were admitted for evaluation of folate to drive. Just only 1.5% laboratory tests were helpful. So the positive result or were by a suspected clinical impact. Early treatment, what is the aim? So the short-term goal to restore the cellular function, then to repeat the loss of the tissues, then to achieve the catch-up. So most of the cases could be managed as an outpatient. Admit when, if there is a severe failure to thrive, if there is a severe dehydration, severe infection, if you want to evaluate the parent-child feeding interaction, or if the outpatient management has failed. When to discharge them, that there is adequate and consistent weight gain, diagnostic test and the consultation were complete. And also the caretaker demonstrate understanding of the nutrition and the growth recommendation that you are telling them, and you are arranging for a proper follow-up. How to calculate the catch-up. So to calculate the catch-up, this is just I'll be telling you what we will be in need. So plot the weight that you are having, the weight centile and the height centile. The weight is under, of course, because he is malnutrition or undernutrition, so he is maybe below the 5th centile. Then the height may be supposed to be in the 10th centile or the 25th centile. So you see what was the appropriate or the matching weight for that height. If the height also is below the 3rd centile, then you assume that this height is the 10th centile, and you see how much is the weight supposed to be for this weight. So the function of the height is to know how much is the ideal weight for that baby or for this children at that age. Then at that time you can obtain how much energy is supposed to be for his actual age, then use this equation. So this is the required energy that it is needed, multiplied by what? The ideal weight that you calculated by his ideal height or the actual height that he is having, and this is divided by the actual weight. So you will have how much energy you should give him for the proper catch-up. The response for the catch-up growth, according to the WHO, this is very important to optimize the catch-up by adequate energy, protein, and micronutrients. Don't forget the micronutrients. So this is the pyramids, the strategy, how you are dealing with the malnutrition. Nutritional counseling and identification, oral nutrition supplement. If it is really difficult, enteral feeding, then parenteral nutrition. This is very important. Don't forget the oral supplement. So the dietary oral supplement, it is not only improving the weight, but in this study also, it is stimulating the height gradually over 48 weeks course of supplementation. The toddler, we are assuming that our growing kids supposed to get this healthy food, while the reality that they are grazing, زي الغنم, عمالين بينجرشوا. So this is the problem that they are having. What is the result of this pattern? That they are lacking protein, energy, but too much micronutrients. And this micronutrients for the supplementation, which one you would like, supplementation or fortification? The widespread worldwide is the supplementation, while fortification would be a cost-effective public health. This is very important. For how long? At least 2 to 3 years, so you could see an impact. So if there is no sustainability, there is no targeted outcome. The conclusion. So conclusion number 1, our ultimate goal, according to the WHO, by 2025, to be free of malnutrition, and definitely one of them, a 30% reduction of a low birth weight, at least. Then a message is human milk is the preferred nutrition. Nutrition must be adjusted on a case-by-case basis, not only according to the weight. There is no accurate definition of micronutrient requirements, so growth and metabolic must be frequently monitored. High caloric formula and oral supplementation is an important strategy for increasing nutritional intake. And my message that in all maladies, those who are well nourished do best, those who are very thin and wasted do bad. So let food to be the medicine and not the food. This is Hippocrates. It is easier to build a strong children than to repair a broken man. And don't forget to follow me, as my dear friend Dr. Wafa just said, for any simplified medical information. This is my official account, and at the end, a good speech has a beginning, has a middle, has an end. Best example, I at beginning, you at the end. Love in between. Love you all. Thank you.
Thank you دكتور إسلام. طبعا لأنه صار في مس كوميونيكيشن معنا ومع لبنان الحبيب، ولأنه الدكتورة كارلا ما قدرنا ناخذ أسئلتها، فاسمح لي إني أضيف الحلوة معنا التي في شو بريزنتر بروفيسور كارلا معنا، لحتى يكون دمج بين أسئلة حضرتك وأسئلتها. ودكتورة كارلا كمان إذا عندك سلايدز حابة تضيفيهم مع الحكي والإجابة على الأسئلة اللي عندك بيشرفني. I'm so sorry for that what happened earlier with the connections. We are very glad to have you back with us from Lebanon to Dubai. من أبو ظبي دكتور إسلام معنا. We have a couple of questions لدكتورة كارلا، حأبدأ فيها، سامحني ladies first، وهي كانت قبل والله عنها. So بروفيسور كارلا عندك سؤالين. السؤال الأول في أكثر من واحد بس حاخذ سؤالين بسؤالين. السؤال الأول one second. What do you think is the poor implementation or reasons for poor implementation for the policies one second. Poor implementation for these policies like a partnership with the private sector. What do you think is the reason?
Actually, I believe, Wafa, that in our region now, it's still the start of such partnerships and policies where you have to put a school policy regarding the sale of food in school and other policies related to children, prevention of childhood obesity. So I guess that we are going there. It takes time, but when we lack actually studies and science evidence to show that this works, then the policymakers don't listen to us. This is what happened in Lebanon, actually. When we showed that our program actually works, then the Ministry of Education now has a qarar, kind of legislation where schools cannot sell high energy dense foods and drinks in schools. So when we show that it works, the government بتلحقنا وبيصير في policies.
في كمان سؤال, what do you think about the digital health? Will it be effective face-to-face nutrition education for school children in terms of knowledge, skills, and behavior?
Actually, thank you for the question, Wafa. During this year, we tried. We changed the implementation of the program from physical face-to-face, obviously because schools are close, to digital. So now, we trained the schools on how to do it. To do the program online with the students, and we are working on a digital platform so that the program can be digitized. Now, How would it work? Will it work? We will, of course, evaluate which is better, or if digital learning would be as good as physical in changing dietary habits.
And this topic is one of my favorite. And
I know, and I want you to be on board with us when we start the digital platform.
I would love to be back. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
For Dr. Islam, is there any recommendation for vegetables patients, the vegetarians who gain excessive weight, but not hide in clinical long-term settings for those patients? Do you want me to repeat the question? Islam, yes, you are muted. Your voice.
Okay, sorry. Okay, help me.
Okay, في عندك أكثر من سؤال يا إسلام.
أنا I have to go المستشفى بيكلموني.
Which we need to for calorie restrictions long term vegetarians.
Calorie restriction.
خلينا أعيد السؤال. Is there a recommendation for vegetables patients who gain excessive weight but not hide in clinical long-term settings, which we need calorie restrictions? How to approach this scenario?
Definitely. I mean, the problem with the vegetarians, the problem that they are getting their energy from the proteins, and some of them would expect that the energy from the protein, if it is a carnivorous one, that it is less, which is not the truth. That we have a high energy that we are getting from some proteins of a plant origin. So this is supposed to be restriction. I mean that there is no specific answer that you have to know what is their dietary intake. Then at that time we could adjust according to them. Maybe they are getting too much, because even those who are vegetarian, you may be astonished to know that some of them that they are obese. Vegetarian, it doesn't mean that they would be thin and smart as they are expecting. Yeah.
Okay, there is symptomatic child. We will observe in growth chart with multivitamin supplementation. Then we will investigate if there is no improvement, even for the baby under 5% from the beginning.
Okay, good question. I mean, this is a practical one. So for those who are coming to us in the feeding clinic, to be honest, it's the other way around. I mean, if I'm having someone that he's failing to thrive or he's underweight, if I'm just seeing him for the first time, just plotting him on the growth curve, he's having the point, he's underweight. To be honest, that from the start, just we will give a very short period that maybe this is an under intake of his energy, and as we said, detailed dietary intake. I'm asking about everything, but to be honest, that sometimes that you need, usually not 90% of the malnutrition, it is because of the environmental factor, not the disease, not the disease one. If the disease one, you will see it. Of course, you are performing the clinical exam, whatever at the time that he is coming to you, and for the history. But here the question, which is the good about it, that maybe something it is hidden. So you are starting that assuming that this is a nutritional, but for a very short time, if there is no starting to have an improvement, then I have to dig deep that maybe that there is an underlying problem that you need to discover. So after doing all of that and finishing, so you could rest that yes, that there is no underlying, there is no problem, then at that time you should continue that maybe this is a resistant case that in need for an admission to calculate and to assess how much they are dealing with each other. The caregiver is dealing with his kid.
I have two questions, one for Professor Carla, one for you, but fast because we are already out of time. Professor Carla, how was the response of the stakeholders, schools, kids, to virtual training and virtual implementation?
Actually, we were afraid that with the online teaching everywhere, and I mean for the normal school, that this will be a burden to teachers to again do Ajyal Salima as, you know, online. You know, Wafa, how it is. They have Arabic, they have math on top of يجيون الأجيال سليمة. So we were really surprised that it was a success. Actually, the teachers saw this as a change, you know, from the routine of schooling, and the students actually enjoyed. The important thing, and we should think of this, I know this is something that interests you, the parents were there at home. So we didn't need to do extra. We didn't do extra effort to bring the parents along. They were sitting and listening, and actually they were helping the child in doing the recipes and answering the questions about which has more protein, which has vitamins, etc. So that
it's a good way to break the ice. حتى بالنسبة للmath والphysics والوا it's beautiful thing to have food and activities and in between. So I agree with you, Carla. Do you have any kind of advice that you would like to add by ending this?
The most important lesson that we learned is that make the lessons short, make the activity short, and actually try to make as much as possible the child move. Even though we're in front of the screen, we were telling them, go now to the kitchen, bring me a fruit portion. Stand up, let's do 10 jumps. مثلا. Do the recipe and show us. So always incorporate a physical activity between brackets to the session to make it interactive and also to break the screen time.
Yeah, well, it's one of my favorite. I love it. I do love Ajyal Salima and anything related to education, from parents to children, from infancy to geriatric. That's why we are here with Aisha and Leila.
Exactly.
Thank you, Dr. Carla. It was a pleasure having you and seeing you as well, Habibti. And thank you for accepting to join us again for the questions. A lot of questions, we would like to send them to you. Professor Islam, I have a question came twice. They are insisting on how can we deal with the picky eater's child with a very low protein, a fast, as well as adequacy of quantity adequate for the intake of baby who is purely on breastfeeding. Two questions that I need you to answer them very quickly.
I mean, for the, if I'm properly understanding, so picky eaters with?
Okay, the first one, picky eaters with a very low protein intake. The second one is how the quantity adequacy of intake of purely breastfeeding.
خليني بس ابدا السؤال الاول. طيب اديني السؤال الاولاني وبعدين اخش على السؤال الثاني. طيب, regarding the picky eaters, I mean, okay, this is the simple term. It is an umbrella, and under which that, okay, there is a lot of entities, let us say. So you have to identify which one of the picky eaters that it is mild, it is moderate, it is severe, just in a simplest explanation. So those who are a picky eater, they are in a vicious circle. So for me, that the more important, they are not getting the proper protein. This is what you are seeing. But the problem that they are not getting the proper mineral, which is affecting their appetite. So by correcting their minerals, the micronutrients, that you are improving their appetite. A lot of methods to improve their appetite. Whenever that you are starting to cut this vicious circle, you will start seeing them eating protein. So I mean, not to focus on I should enforce them to eat protein, but it is the other way around. So this is the first. الثاني بقى انا مش عارف هو ايه بقى الثاني ده.
Child on breastfeeding, purely breastfeeding, adequate intake. انت كيف تعرف انه he's taking adequate intake if he's purely breastfeeding? Breastfeeding is full.
يعني, I mean, this is okay. This is a question. I mean, okay. يعني you have to bring him to the doctor. So and he will tell you that he is getting well. Again, I mean, it is very simple. I mean, just to plot them, because every time that the mothers they are coming to you, I would feel that he's not eating, and the only thing that what is remaining that he's supposed to eat me. So we could convince her that he is eating well. The point is plotting him on the chart, and he is doing well on the chart. He is above the 5th centile for the weight, for the height, and in the second visit that he is growing. Then I could assure you that he is getting his proper breast milk from that breastfeeding.
Okay, so by that, forgive me, we are already out of time. I would like to thank Professor Joseph Haddad, Professor Carla Habib, Professor
فين
Wael,
جوزيف حبيبي يا جوزيف انت فين؟
Professor Islam, all of you stars, friends of mine, that I'm very honored to be with you in this session. I'm very happy to moderate it because I could have seen you all, because I miss you all. My love to all of you, and hope to see you.
Wafa, I'm taking a screenshot. اعملي لي الهارت، اعملي لي هارت for the screenshot. يلا
يلا يا اسلام،
يلا اسلام screenshot. Thank you.
Thank you ليلك. Thank you ليلك. ومن دبي للبنان حب كبير.
Thank you.
Stay safe. دكتور إسلام as well. يعطيكم ألف عافية.
Thank you so much
for being with us in this conference, and thank you, Dr. Leila, Professor Aisha, for being me a moderator, and I hope for all the audience that you enjoyed. See you soon in the second session.
Thank you all. Thank you so much. Take care. Love you. Bye-bye.
Love you as well. Bye-bye.
Good afternoon, Dr. Hiroki. Good afternoon, attendees. We are moving now to the sponsored session of our conference. Dr. Hiroki, can you please share your screen?
Okay, now I try. Wait a minute. So now you can see that.
Yes, Dr. Hiroki.
Okay.
We can start.
Okay, now we can. I can start.
Yes, Dr. Hiroki.
Okay, thank you very much. So, Assalamu alaikum. So, thank you very much for this opportunity. So, I would like to express sincere appreciation, and especially I would like to appreciate Dr. Aisha Al-Dehari. So thank you very much. And also all the staff, and especially Miss Kim. So every time, so supporting us. So thank you so much. And I'm very happy to see everyone seems fine. And I hope all you keep staying safe. And now I'm in Tokyo. So we are still in state of emergency. So unfortunately, so we cannot collaborate activity in this year. So because of these situations, I hope it will cover as soon as possible. So today, so on behalf of Faculty of Agriculture, so I would like to briefly introduce our university, so who we are, and our activities collaborating with UAE University and Japanese companies. So I have a workshop sessions. So I would like to talk the details in the sessions. So if you're interested, so please join in. And also, so in exhibition hall, so we have simple poster and we can chat. So please feel free to stop by. So first, I'd like to start the brief introduction of our university. So I'm not sure how many people knows our university. So our university name is Tokyo University of Agriculture and Technology. So we call the TUAT. So the origin of our university is the same as University of Tokyo. So University of Tokyo, I think, is very famous in one of the top of university in Japan. So our university is compared to the University of Tokyo, a little bit small, but our challenge is focused on the practical things. So our university is just a 400 faculty member and 4,000 undergraduate and 2,000 graduate students. And we have two campus, so Fuchu campus and Kokane campus. So Fuchu, I'm in the faculty of agriculture as in the Fuchu campus. So this is the scenery of the Faculty of Agriculture. In Tokyo, we have a very huge experiment farm. So we have 15 hectares in Tokyo areas. It is very surprising. So if you enter in our university, so you can enjoy a lot of the scenery and you have a lot of experimental farms. So by the way, so as you know, so we're facing a very serious condition. So in addition to the COVID-19, so this is a food crisis. So the world population will be 9.5 billion in 2050s. So we cannot afford all the people on the earth. So because there are some water resources and a farm land and fertilizer and energy is all limited. So that's why so our university and the UA University are trying to have activity towards the sustainable food and energy systems. So we started the collaborative activities since the 2015. So it passed, I think, 6 years. So we first focus on the date palm fruits. So as you know, the date palm is a very culturally and economically so important agriculture product in Arabic and African countries. And also it contains high energy and various nutrients, and it can cultivate in the severe condition, even in the deserts. So and this production in UAE is have a lot of percentage, or more than a half. So that's why we focus on these palms. And then our approach is we have two approaches. One is a low-calorie sweetener production from these palms, and the collaboration of the Japanese food culture. So I will tell you the details in the sessions. So locally sweetener productions, we have a collaborative activity with a Japanese company, one of the biggest locally sweetener production company, so Be Food Science. So now we successfully developed the method to make a locally sweetener from the these palm fruits. So locally sweetener is kind of the sorbitol and mannitol, xylitol, like that. So they are widely used in the food industry. So that will be a very good raw materials. So that's why we focus on that approach. And in addition to the locally sweetener productions, so we are now challenging to develop a new sweetener. So we have collaborating the Japanese traditional confectionery company, so Kimuraya company. So we are collaborating with the UA University students and developing some new products. So now we are developing this kind of new dates palm product. So later, so please stop by and feel free to chat on through the system. So I'm waiting on the chat room. So thank you very much. So this is very briefly introductions, but I'm very happy to have these opportunities, and I hope you enjoy this conference. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hiroki, for that wonderful presentation. Quite quick, but it's a complete one. We have received like some question, not really questions, but it's like some comments that it's a very interesting university, your university.
Okay, thank you very much.
Your session was a very good one. We are proud to have this collaboration with Tokyo University.
Thank you.
So I hope you would be happy to share your presentation with our attendees, Dr. Hiroki.
Okay.
Sure. All right. So attendees, we end the session with Tokyo University for this time. They have a booth in our exhibition hall. Feel free to chat them. Dr. Hiroki will also be there and would be happy to answer any of your further clarifications. Thank you so much for now, Dr. Hiroki, and I hope to see you on your session in the coming days.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Everyone, we will end our session for now. Please come back again at 6 o'clock, exactly 6 o'clock, so we will start our session 2 for today's conference. Thank you.